if you just don't use your credit, you'll have good credit. If you, oh no, pay off your credit cards and cancel them, pay off this loan and close it out. But unfortunately, 35% of your credit score is calculated off of payment history and 30% is calculated off of utilization. So if you're not making payments and you're not utilizing credit, you're missing out on a ton of points for your credit score, right? So that obviously goes both ways. If we're maxing out our cards or if we're paying late, our credit score is going to drop so much. So I even see, 100-point decreases off of just a single late payment. So definitely always making sure that you're paying your payments on time. I always advise setting up at least the minimum payment on Autopay so that, even though you're probably going to pay more than the minimum payment every month, hopefully, at least you're not going to miss a payment and you're not going to have a late payment that's going to tank your credit score.
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. I'm your host, Angela Duncan, and we talk all things money and business. Today's episode is sponsored by Podcast Money Magnet. This is a program that I created just for you to launch your new podcast in 30 days. And if you DM me the word podcast, I'm going to provide you with the ultimate podcast launch checklist for free. So DM me podcast and I'll make sure you get that checklist for free. Today's episode, I get to interview Jessica Wright with Ethical Credit Restoration. She is going to share her story on how her identity was stolen and give you secrets that you might not know about to boost your credit score. Hi, Jessica. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here, get the opportunity to chat with you.
Thank you. I have a fun question to start off the show. Okay. If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why?
I think I would have super strength. I hit the gym almost every day of the week and I love being strong. And I think that with super strength, I would be able to do so much, help so many people in so many practical ways. And so I think that would probably be the one that I would choose.
Ah, I love that. So before we get into what you do, why don't we talk a little bit about your journey and your story? How did you get to be the ethical credit restoration?
Yeah. Okay. So about 14 years ago, I was a young single mom picking up my kids from daycare. And the one time I ever left my purse in the car, my car was broken into, my purse was stolen, and I just so happened to have literally everything in there: birth certificate, social security card, checkbooks, credit cards. Like I had no idea not to have all that stuff on me. You know what I mean? And so it was all there, like prime identity theft toolkit was just right there. Right. And unfortunately, the people who stole my purse were a part of one of those like identity theft rings. And so the counties that they committed identity theft on me, they didn't want to prosecute because it just happened so frequently. So unfortunately, for multiple years, these people had my identity and there was nothing to do to stop them. Right. And so as you can imagine, my credit got completely screwed up. I mean, they were opening bank accounts in my name, opening new credit cards in my name, cashing checks here and there. And so I ended up with all kinds of collections and just charge-offs and everything that I had no idea about. And it was nothing that I had any part in. But unfortunately, without like the police or the law enforcement doing going the full extent of like doing the report and prosecuting it, et cetera, there wasn't much of a leg for me to stand on with these creditors to get them to remove these items. And so I first started by hiring a large national credit repair company that most of us have all heard of and a lot of us have used. And they were able to make some progress for me, but unfortunately, those items just kept popping back up. And, like I said, young single mother, I couldn't afford to continue to pay $100 a month for credit repair. And so I learned how to do it myself. And then after I was very successful with my own results, I started helping friends and family, people at church, etc. And I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always been in business for myself. And so after a little while of owning a few different businesses, I kind of was ready for something new. And, I just put a lot of thought into it. And I was like, well, what do I already know how to do? What am I already great at? And so a couple of years ago, I decided to start ethical credit restoration and do this full time professionally after having, about 12 years of kind of doing it on the side experience and learning the tips and tricks from doing it just for friends and family.
Wow. So yeah, so you went through a lot of problems for this. So you already shared a couple tips. Number one, don't carry your birth certificate or social security card or all your credit cards on you. Those should be in safe location. So that's definitely
Yes,
tip number one. So
absolutely.
what else can you share with us to kind of give us some great information and tips that people probably are just not aware of?
Yeah, for sure. So something that most of my clients and most of the people that I talk to, even unfortunately mortgage lenders and realtors, like people who really need to know how to advise about credit, even a lot of those people, they tend to think that if you just don't use your credit, you'll have good credit. If you, oh no, pay off your credit cards and cancel them, pay off this loan and close it out. But unfortunately, 35% of your credit score is calculated off of payment history, and 30% is calculated off of utilization. So if you're not making payments and you're not utilizing credit, you're missing out on a ton of points for your credit score, right? So that obviously goes both ways. If we're maxing out our cards or if we're paying late, our credit score is going to drop so much. So I even see 100-point decreases off of just a single late payment. So definitely
Wow.
always making sure that you're paying your payments on time. I always advise setting up at least the minimum payment on Autopay so that, even though you're probably going to pay more than the minimum payment every month, hopefully, at least you're not going to miss a payment and you're not going to have a late payment that's going to tank your credit score. So I guess I would say one of my next tip would be to make sure that you are definitely using credit, even if it's just one car, or excuse me, if let's say you have just three little credit cards, you're using them once a month each and then paying that balance off. That's going to help you tremendously to boost your credit score, to establish positive trade lines, to establish a credit profile for when you're ready to buy a car or buy a home or take out business funding. You'll at least have some payment history and some utilization to show. So again, like I just mentioned, the payment history is 35%, right? So always having your minimum payments on Autopay is going to be really helpful to avoid missing a payment and having your credit score tank because of a late payment.
That's a
But
really good piece of advice there because I do get my credit card statements via email and I
yeah,
have two cards with the same company and sometimes both emails come at the same time and I just don't realize it. And so
mhm.
I go in to make my payment. I pay it in full, but I go in to make that payment only on the one because I missed the second email. So that was a really good tip to at least put the minimum payment on auto pay so you don't get hit with that late fee.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we're hopefully paying more than the minimum payment, right? Because we don't want to pay interest. But at least then you don't get the late fee and then the drop in your credit score because of the late payment. And late payment can keep you from being qualified for all types of funding. So it's like you just want to avoid that at all costs. The late payments are the worst thing that you can do for your credit for sure. But then that other piece, another 30% of your credit score calculation is based on utilization. And so again, that goes both ways. If you're not using any credit, that's going to hurt you. But if you're maxing out your cards, that's also going to hurt you big time. So I see some clients sometimes, they'll start up with me and their cards will be at, 80 or 90% utilization. And then they just get those paid down the next month when we refresh their report, their score has already jumped 100 points because it's that big. That 30% is a huge chunk of your credit score. So proper utilization, what you want to do is keep your card balances between 10 and 30% of the limit. So like if you have a $1,000 credit card, you want to keep that balance between $100 and $300. During any time in the month, you really don't want to charge it over the $300 and you want to try to keep it as low as possible. So that's going to be another tip, the utilization, right? But that kind of leads me into another really important tip that I try to tell everybody, and it's so funny because it's something that nobody ever thinks about, but it's, to me, it's like, well, obviously, right? And only because I'm in this industry and I talk about it all the time. But when we think credit, we think debt, right? So we think we're going to go to the mall, we're going to take out $1,000 Victoria's Secret card and buy $1,000 worth of underwear and body spray. Nobody needs $1,000 worth of underwear and body spray at 30% interest with a $99 annual fee. Nobody needs that, right? I understand sometimes we want to do the retail cards, we want to get that big discount, et cetera. But make sure that you're weighing, okay, if I'm getting a 20% discount today, but I'm paying 30% interest, if I really actually want to get that discount, I have to pay this balance off this month, right? So just keep that in mind when you're taking advantage of those retail cards. But what I always advise is using your credit for expenses that are already within your budget. So that way you're reaping all the benefits of that utilization and that payment history, but you're not going outside of your budget to do it. You're not going into debt to do it, right?
Yeah.
So have one credit card that you charge your gas on. And let's say you get paid twice a month, you get paid every other week, right? So you're going to buy your tank of gas every week. And then as soon as Friday rolls around and you get your paycheck, you're going to pay that card off. That way you've used that credit card and you're making 2 payments a month and you're not spending any money outside of your budget. You're only buying the gas that you would have already bought. But you're still reaping all the benefits of the utilization and the payment history. Get another card for your cell phone bill, another card for your car insurance, another card for your groceries. You technically don't even have to carry these credit cards on you. You just set them up for auto pay on those bills. Excuse me. I'm still getting over that flu a little bit.
Yeah.
You're setting them up on auto pay for those bills that I mentioned. And then you can set the credit card bill up for auto pay out of your checking account. So it's hands off, right? You don't even have to mess with it, but you're reaping the benefits of that payment history and that credit utilization. It takes a little bit of time to set up, obviously, on the front end, but it's literally set it and forget it. And then you're, again, reaping all those benefits. So that's really how I advise my clients utilize their credit. And then, when you start with low credit, sometimes it's kind of hard to get a good credit card. You're not going to qualify for a $10,000 Amex right out the gate, right? You're going to have to build up to that. But my goal for my clients is always like a mid 700s, high 700s credit score. And whatever that card that makes them feel like they've arrived, whatever that card is, that's what I want for them. So if it's an Alaskan Airlines so they can get travel points, or if it's an Amex so that they can have that gold card, whatever it is, that's always my goal for them. So that starts with, 5 to 6, 7, maybe even 8 smaller lines of credit and then building up to that.
Yeah, so that's a good idea too. But if someone, say for example, they went through, medical or something like that, and so they're trying to rebuild their credit, what advice do you give for someone like that?
So that actually, I had that experience as well. I was diagnosed with cancer, and that was another one of the things that I had to go through to repair my credit as well. I had a repo, I had medical bills, I had all kinds of late payments. So I definitely have been there, and I totally understand. And that is a lot of my clients. They just went through something. It's not that they're irresponsible. It's just that they went through something. So rebuilding is very important. Excuse me. I always say that the credit repair process is totally a team effort, right? Because I can get negative items removed all day long. And that's very important because a lot of times creditors, if you have certain type of negative items on your credit, they won't approve you. You can have a credit score of 750, but if you've got late payments on an auto loan or on a mortgage, or if you have medical bills that you're not paying, some creditors just won't even touch you, right? So then you're missing out on opportunities. So obviously, if you've got negative items on your credit, taking advantage of a credit repair specialist, credit repair services is going to be really important for you. It's going to be super beneficial. But on the client side, what they need to be doing in order to repair is, for one, opening up, if they don't already have positive trade lines, they don't already have credit cards, opening up a couple of credit card accounts, even if they have to start with a small secured card, and then just using it how we just discussed, your tank of gas here, your cell phone bill there, etc. But opening up at least 3 positive trade lines. And then there are a lot of different options available, rent reporting, utility bill reporting, and I have an affiliate link for all of those things. There's, small credit builder loans that are available through a lot of credit unions. Things like that can help you to rebuild your credit. And typically it's going to take at least 90 days for you to see, a significant increase based on rebuilding, because you've got to think about at first, credit starts with an inquiry, which does ding your credit a little bit, right? And then you've got to wait until you make that payment. The creditor reports the payment to the bureau updates the report. So it is going to take a little bit of time for you to start to see the growth happen from taking these steps. But, after about 90 days, you should see that ball rolling and your scores increasing. It's just really mostly about, like I said, that payment history and that utilization. So as long as everything that you're doing to rebuild your credit is focused on positive payment history and responsible utilization, you should get to where you need to be.
Okay, so you touched on a couple of terms for the audience that may not understand. I worked in banking for many
yes.
years, so
sorry.
So let's first start with the secured credit card. What does that mean?
So a secured credit card is basically like, let's say you take $500 and the bank puts it in a savings account for you, and then they give you a credit card for $500 to borrow against that savings account. You're still most likely paying an annual fee. You're still most likely paying interest. It is possible that at the end of 1 year or 2 years of excellent payment history, just all of your payments being made on time, that you'll get that $500 back, and then that account will convert to a regular credit card, an unsecured credit card. But basically, the term secured just refers to that savings account that you have attached to it, to where if you end up, not paying back the credit, the bank can go ahead and use that savings account to pay it back.
Okay. And then you mentioned rent. I think most people have a misconception when it comes to rent, that they think that that's automatically going on their credit report if they're paying their rent on time. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you why they think that, because they run your credit in order to approve you for a rental. So you would automatically assume that, of course, my rent's going to go on my credit report, right? But unfortunately, that's not the case. So what you can actually do is, so I partner with Identity IQ. They're an excellent credit monitoring service, and I can provide you with the link for Identity IQ. They offer a rent reporting option. So for an extra $3 a month on top of your credit monitoring membership, you can actually link your bank account to the credit monitoring. And every time that you make a payment to your rent or to your utility bills, they will go ahead and report that as self-reported rent, self-reported utilities. Now, some lenders, when they're going through each line item, they're not going to take that as seriously, but it is definitely still going to boost up your credit score because it's going to show as payment history. So that is definitely helpful.
Very nice. I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that there was a service available. I knew it didn't report to the credit agencies, but I didn't know you could have a way for it to report. So that's good information too.
Yeah, for sure. And that's that's, if we have time to dive into that, how, your credit is required in order to get a rental, but they don't report that to your credit. I mean, there's just so many things that are kind of backwards and unfair about credit. That's why it's so important to know how it works, so that you can really play the game by their rules, unfortunately, but at least you know the rules, right? And then you can, at least get into the best position you possibly can with your credit, so that you can reap all the benefits of good credit.
Yeah, it is interesting. So I used to teach Dave Ramsey. I was the certified Financial Peace University coach. And he teaches, paying cash for people that perhaps are having trouble or trying to get out of debt or struggle a little bit with credit cards. But those people that are paying cash, as you already said, they're not building credit by doing that.
Yeah. And so unless you have hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash, there's going to be a lot of things you're not able to do, unfortunately, and I hear that a lot from people. Oh, I don't care about my credit. I just pay cash for everything. That's cute when you're riding the bus and living in an apartment. That's totally fine for that lifestyle. But if you're someone who wants to establish wealth through real estate, or if you want to open a big business and you're going to need a couple $100,000 in capital, you have to have good credit. You have to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just something, just like a muscle. You're going to continue to work this muscle forever because you never know when you might need that credit score.
That is another thing. I mean, I've had clients who, It wasn't even at any fault of their own. Let's say there's mold in their apartment or in their home or something, and they have to go qualify for another rental. Well, right now, housing is competitive, right?
Mhm.
Housing is competitive everywhere. So if you've got a 620 credit score, they're going to take the 650 over you. They're going to take the 720 over you. And it's plenty of 720s out there, And so unfortunately, a lot of times people literally cannot even just get a new place to live because their credit is not where it should be. And you just never know. If your car breaks
Yeah.
down, you need to go buy a new one. If you have medical bills or some sort of expense, your child has an expense and you need to borrow money to cover it, you should just have good credit on standby, so that you're able to meet whatever need it is.
Yeah. What is the credit score range?
Between 350 and 850.
Oh, wow. So I actually didn't know it went all the way to 350. So that's good information to know.
It used to
And
be
then I think,
450.
oh, gotcha. And
Yeah.
there's a website I think that people can check their own credit. Do you recall or make recommendations on if someone just wanted to pull their own credit history?
Yeah, so annualcreditreport.com is obviously, that's the one that most people know about. They can go to and get their credit report for free once a year. Um, but again, like I mentioned before, I strongly recommend a credit monitoring service. There are a lot of credit monitoring services out there, and unfortunately, most of them use either the FICO models or the Vantage 3.0 models. Even the Experian credit monitoring only gives the Vantage 3.0. They don't even give their own credit bureau score. It's kind of wonky. But I like I said, I partner with Identity IQ. They give you all 3 credit bureau reports and credit bureau scores every 30 days. And then something that I like about them as well is that, if you've ever tried to read your credit report, it's like kind of like a secret alien language or something. Like it's kind of hard to interpret the information that's on there, all these charts and
Mhm.
graphs that we're not used to seeing. So what I like about Identity IQ, and then what I offer with my service as well, is you get a credit report analysis. And so what that is just like your whole credit report broken down into layman's terms. It gives you like information on what you can do differently in order to, reap more benefits from certain accounts, or what you can do differently to boost your score, et cetera. So I really feel like that's very helpful for people who are not credit report savvy, which is 99.9% of people. And that just helps you to like really be able to interpret the information and put it to use to your benefit.
Yeah. Or I'm just going to tell the audience to get in touch with you, Jessica, so that they can hire you and then you can
Yeah,
help them understand the reports and get their credit scores up as
I would
well.
love to do that. It's the most important thing for me. Obviously, I love repairing credit, right? I love fixing people's credit and helping them reach their goals. But the most important thing to me is credit education and credit coaching, because I don't want you to ever need my services again. I want you to be able to navigate your way through the credit world successfully, maybe help a friend or two, teach your kids how to do it, etc. That's why both of my programs come with a ton of credit education and credit coaching, so that my clients can really like learn everything that I know. I'm not trying to keep any secrets. I'm not trying to make lifetime clients out of anybody. I want them to be self-sufficient going forward so that they can be successful with their credit.
Awesome, Jessica. So if the audience wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, so my website is www.ethicalcreditrestoration.com. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, there is a form you can fill out for a free consultation. There's a ton of information on there as far as my programs and results and reviews. And I've got, excuse me, some credit education available on my website as well. But that's the best way, is just to go to my website, ethicalcreditrestoration.com, and then to fill out that form for a free consultation. You'll typically receive a text within a few hours to get you scheduled for a call.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for your time today. It was a lot of great information on credit.
Yeah.
So sharing the tips for business owners and just everyone in general so that they can make sure that they are taking care of their credit.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you so much for tuning into Empower Her Money podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast, and leave a review wherever you are tuning in.